Hi everyone, welcome to week 8 of your Medical Language 1 course. This week we are covering Chapter 6. Chapter 6 is on hematology and immunology. These two classifications study two different systems within the body. Hematology is the study of the blood, whereas immunology is the study of the lymph system. Both of these systems are what I would like to call transportation systems. So they are both doing movement within the body, but they do different things and they have different results at the end. But they have some similarities as well. So we're going to look at some of those similarities and differences, as well as specifics regarding each of the systems that they study. So the first is hematology. Hematology, as I mentioned, is the study of the blood and how we use laboratory and diagnostic tests and things to treat different blood diseases, whereas immunology is related to the lymph system and the immune response. So both of them are moving things around. So let's look first at hematology. So when we talk about hematology, what we're talking about is the movement of blood. So the blood contains several different types of cells within blood, and as well as cell fragments. There's a lot of water contained in blood, and then there's other substances, and they mentioned some of those here, proteins, clotting factors, and things like that. So what does the blood transport? Remember I said it was a transportation system. So what the blood is doing is it's moving oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrients, and waste products. So that is their main job. Now, they do function some of the blood cells do function as part of the lymph system, which is why we are studying them in conjunction with immunology. So immunology, as I mentioned, is the study of the lymph system and the immune response. So the lymph system contains lymphatic vessels, fluids, lymph nodes, lymph tissues, lymphoid organs, and it's a separate system from the cardiovascular system, but it's going to move the lymph around, okay, the lymph fluid. Now, the main job, as opposed to blood, where it's moving oxygen and carbon dioxide and those types of things, the main job of the lymph system is to defend our body against microorganisms, specifically, things like fighting disease, right? So we're looking at things like fighting off cancers, things like that, okay? So as you go through this, we're going to look first at the different pieces and parts of the blood, because the blood is, most of us see blood and we're like, oh, it's blood, right? But no, it contains a lot of different things. First, it contains plasma. Plasma is about 90% water. And then inside the blood, there are also suspended within that plasma erythrocytes, leukocytes, thrombocytes. Okay. And then in addition, we also have obviously things like cholesterol and triglycerides, electrolytes that are all moved around within the blood as well. So they're going to kind of show you some pictures of what that looks like. Here's an example for whole blood. Once we centrifuge it, which means we're spinning it around, you can see how it splits everything out. So you can see what's left. All of this is the plasma. This little tiny bit here is the white blood cells and platelets, and down here is the red blood cells. So you can see kind of more of the balance of how much of each is contained within whole blood when you look at this particular diagram. So that's a really good picture of it. They're going to go through and talk about each of those different parts of the blood. What are erythrocytes? What are leukocytes? What do they do? That type of thing. So you're going to look at the different anatomy of the blood. You're going to look at how does blood clot? Obviously something that's very important, as well as the different functions of each of those cells. What are they there for? What do they actually do? And then after we look at the blood clotting, we're going to look at the lymph system. So what are the different parts of the lymph system? Those lymph vessels, the lymph nodes, what do they do and why are they so important? And then, of course, just like with all of our chapters, we're going to look at some of the disease states for each of them. So, for example, disease states that deal with the blood, hemorrhaging, anemia. Those are some of the more common ones that you might know. Sickle cell anemia. Those are all diseases of the blood. And then we're going to look at some of the diseases of the lymph system. So when we look at the lymph system, probably one of the more, I don't know if you'd call it common, but one of the ones you're probably more familiar with might be Hodgkin's lymphoma or non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Also things like any type of autoimmune disorder, so multiple sclerosis, diabetes, myasthenia gravis, psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, all of these things are come from the lymph system, or they're diseases of the lymph system, I should say. And then they're going to look at some of the laboratory and diagnostic procedures, some of the medications that we use to treat these, as well as some of the surgical procedures. So if you have any questions this week, please make sure that you reach out to me, and have a great week.